Hello, and welcome to My Week in Baseball. I'm your host, Phil Estruth Harrison. You're listening to Season 2, Episode 5. All episodes are now available in both video and podcast format at myweekinbaseball.com. A couple of special acknowledgments this week. First, to Rose Petal Studios for the artwork and logos created especially for this show and website. You'll find Rose Petal Studios on Instagram at rosepetal_studios. Second, thanks to Brunjo Productions in Nashville for our intro music. Learn more at brunjo.com. Well, today we've got an action-packed episode, my friends, as we talk about a radical proposal to shake up baseball's playoff system, whether or not the American and National Leagues matter anymore, another Shohei Ohtani moment, and a baseball geometry lesson. Hint, it's not a diamond. Of course, we'll also have a timely Blimerick and our t-shirt of the day. So let's get right to it. Okay, I'm going to start with a controversial question. Would you like to see the Yankees and Red Sox play each other in the World Series? Yes, you heard that right. Or maybe you prefer a Dodgers versus Giants series. Two teams from the same division in the World Series? Blasphemy, right? Well, first, this is my proposal, my crazy idea. It's nothing from Major League Baseball or any official channel. It's just me dreaming, or maybe it's a nightmare. You can decide that. So I'm talking about two recent blog posts that I've written at myweekinbaseball.com. One of those is about, are the leagues relevant any longer? And the other one is reimagining baseball's playoff system. Both of these posts go hand in hand, if you will. So if you've read those posts, you'll know what I'm going to talk about today. And if not, I'm going to give you a summary. You still might want to go and read the detail on those posts. But let's go back a little ways. Let's go back 100 plus years to 1903. That is an important year in the history of baseball because that is the first year that there was a World Series played between two separate leagues, the National League and the American League. The National League was sometimes known as the senior circuit, the AL as the junior circuit, because the National League was the original older professional league. And those leagues stayed independent and completely separate for a very, very long time, meaning that they played each other, right? And you know this as baseball fans, the American League teams played only American League teams. The National League played only National League teams, except for, say, the All-Star game. And then when you get to the World Series, the two leagues sent their champion to the World Series. In fact, for a long time, there were no playoffs. The two winners of the leagues went directly to the World Series. So those leagues were totally separate. And for the most part, they played with the same rules or similar rules, although they had slightly different strike zones at times, slightly different minor kind of rule changes. But a big change happened in 1973, which was with the introduction of the designated hitter in the American League. It was originally agreed to by an 8-4 vote of the owners to have as an experiment for 3 years. Well, it was a very successful experiment and kept on going. And of course, we have it to this day. So at that point, starting in the early 1970s, there was a big difference in the leagues because not only were the teams separate, played only each other during the regular season, they really now were playing with a very different rule, designated hitter versus the pitcher batting, and the different strategies involved in that. And they continued then to send their champion each year to the World Series. That all started to change, though, in 1997 with the introduction of interleague play. So with interleague play, originally a limited number of games each season, you would play a few teams in the other league. And it's interesting, right? Especially if you have some regional rivalries. Maybe you've got the Chicago Cubs versus the Chicago White Sox as a regional rivalry. Maybe you've got some teams in the Midwest, maybe the Cincinnati Reds versus the Cleveland Indians, or something like that. You've got some interest that you can generate by playing across the leagues. And originally, you only played like one division each year from the other league. Well, that has grown over time so that more and more games are being played across leagues. And then two big changes have happened just in the last couple of seasons. So last year in 2022 was the first year that the National League formally adopted the designated hitter. So as of last year, both leagues now are playing with the exact same set of rules. They now have the exact same strike zone. The rules are the same. No difference between the leagues in that manner. This year, starting in 2023, interleague play has been expanded so that every team in each league plays every team in the other league, at least I think a couple of series anyway. So everybody's going to play everybody. Everybody is playing with the same rule with the designated hitter. I will argue that there is no difference between the leagues anymore. Does that mean they're irrelevant? It doesn't exactly mean they're irrelevant because they certainly have historical relevance. The leagues were separate, right? All the statistics, the comparisons we have going back over 100 years have all been based on the two separate leagues. So they're still relevant in that historical context. But I would argue that they really aren't relevant now and going forward. They are useful in kind of arbitrarily setting up, and arbitrarily is not quite the right word because they do have this history behind them. So it's not really, the league alignment's not exactly arbitrary. But you know what I mean? There's no particular reason for it anymore other than to kind of divide the teams up into groups. And you also have the different divisions within each league that divide the teams into more manageable groups of 5 teams per division across the 6 divisions. So from this point forward, in my view, there's really no difference between the leagues and no reason that we need to continue the playoffs in the way we've historically seen them, which was determining an American League champion and having them play a National League champion. Okay, yeah, historically it's nice. Does it really matter anymore? I will say no. And so I'm proposing a completely radical change to the playoffs. And the essential idea is let the 12 best teams play. Let me get into the detail of that. So some of it would be the same. My proposal would be that the 6 division winners get the top 6 playoff seeds, which is really what we're doing right now. And the 6 divisions are broken down into 3 divisions for each league. So you would still have that aspect of the league separation. The key change for me is what happens to the next 6 seeds, because there are 12 teams now that make the playoffs. So you'd have the 6 division winners plus, in my proposal, the next 6 best teams across all of Major League Baseball. They would get seeds 6 through 12, which means that these are the wild card teams now. It means that these wild card teams wouldn't matter which league you were in. We just take the next 6 best teams. So in the very extreme case, that could be all 6 wild cards come from the National League or the American League. I think that's extremely unlikely. But it's certainly possible that instead of 3 wild cards from each league, you might get 4 from one league and 2 from the other in a given year, or maybe in a more extreme case, 5 and 1. I think 4 and 2 could happen. It's still probably pretty likely that many seasons it'd still be 3 and 3. But I like this idea because it doesn't it gives us those best teams playing each other in the playoffs to help determine who really is the true champion. So then once that happens, the way I would see this working is that the top 4 seeds, which are the 4 division winners who have the best records, they would get a first round bye. And that is how it has been working, at least the past year in MLB. So there would be my proposal is no change in that. Seeds number 5 and 6 would go to the 5th and 6th best division winners. And then seeds 7 through 12 go to those next 6 best teams, regardless of what league they're in. And then you'd have 3 rounds of playoffs. You'd have your first round, which is really the wild card series, and still is the wild card series, where you'd have the highest seed in that series, which would be the 5th seed, playing the 12th seed, the 6th seed, playing the 11th seed, and so on, so that you're trying to make it likely that the better seeds are playing the lower seeds, even though there's not usually that much difference in the quality of the playoff teams, but giving the better, higher seeded teams a better chance to advance, as you typically would in a tournament. And then the second round of the tournament would be, you take, the first seed who had a bye, seeds 1 through 4, who all had byes in the first round, would then play the winners of those wild card series. And again, you'd set it up so that the top seed would be playing the likely lowest seed left from that first round of playoffs. So in my view, and if you read the blog post, it'll explain this in detail, but seed number 1 would play the winner of the seed number 8 and 9 game. That would assure that they don't play a team higher than the number 8 seed in that first round. Okay, so that would be the second round. And you could call that the division series. I think you might want to change the terminology. We might want to call it the quarterfinals, which would be similar to the way other sports brackets call it when you get to that number of teams. And then when you get to the next round, the third round of the playoffs, which have traditionally been called the ALCS and NLCS, the American League Championship Series and National League Championship Series, you wouldn't call them that anymore because they really wouldn't be league dependent. I would just call them the semifinals. And in that case, you set it up so that the higher seed, again, is facing the lower seed. So in that case, it could be the number 1 seed playing the number 4 seed, or whoever won the game the number 4 seed was playing in. And then the number 2 and number 3 seeds could play each other, or they would play the winner of that previous series. And then from those semifinals, you end up at the World Series. And now you should have the 2 best teams in baseball, right? Or at least the 2 teams that were the hottest going into the playoffs. It might be the 2 teams that had the best starting pitching, which often seems to be the case. But I like the idea of really shaking things up and having that possibility of 2 amazing teams, whatever league they're from. Dodgers and Giants. Think of a couple of years ago when those teams both won 100 games in the same division. Or, gosh, maybe it's the Braves and the Mets, who have been amazing these past year or 2. Why not? The Yankees, the Red Sox. Why not? I want to see the 2 best teams duke it out, whoever is the best in those playoff runs. And I don't really care if in their AL and NL anymore. You can disagree with me on this, and a lot of people probably will. It's certainly a baseball purist issue. Gee, it's always been this way. Why should we change it? Well, it just sounds so exciting to see some of those great teams have a chance to play each other. So I say, let's go ahead and give it a try. And with that, it's now time for our Blimerick of the day. That's our baseball limerick. And this time, it is a tribute to a new playoff system. So here we go. With the 12 very best teams battling for the title, it seems like the Sox versus New York would surely pop the cork for ratings and championship dreams. Next up, something to honk about. So you think you know your geometry, do you? Well, what's the shape of a baseball field? Easy, right? But if you answered a diamond, you are oh so wrong. And I credit this information to a recent article by John Shea in the San Francisco Chronicle. The correct answer, according to an associate professor of mathematics at San Francisco State, is a kite. Technically, a convex kite. That is the shape of the baseball field. And this is because, believe it or not, you probably don't know this, and I don't know that most major leaguers, coaches, or managers necessarily knew this either. But this is because the bases do not all align with each other, not the way you think they do. So this is what I learned. The back edge of first base, the edge that faces the outfield, does not align with the edge of second base. It doesn't. It aligns with the center of second base. You can draw a line from that edge all the way down the infield dirt, and it will meet up with the center line of second base, not the outside edge of second base. And this, believe it or not, you're saying, when did this happen? It's been a rule in the rule books for more than 100 years. I was kind of dumbfounded to learn that. So it's always been this way. But why are we noticing it? The reason we're noticing it more is because this year, starting in 2023, the bases are now bigger than they've ever been before. They have increased by 3 inches. So whereas second base used to be 7.5 inches offline towards center field, right? Because the old base size was a square 15-inch base. Half of that going down the center would be 7.5 inches. So it used to be 7.5 inches skewed off towards center field. Now it's 9 inches because the bases are 18. So half of the 18, it's 9 inches skewed off center towards center field. And so that means the angles around the bases are not all 90 degrees. And that's why it's no longer a diamond. That's why it's, can you remember? A convex kite. All right. So be smart. The next time someone says something about a baseball diamond, you can correct them and say, well, it's actually a convex kite. Last up, Shohei Ohtani does it again. In a recent World Baseball Classic game with Team Japan winning 8-1 against Team China, Ohtani pitched a gem and walloped the ball. Batting third, he went 2 for 4 with a single, double, 2 walks, and 2 RBI. And on the pitching side, 4 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, and just 1 hit. Well, you know what? It's hard to hit the ball when 6 of his pitches were 99 plus miles an hour. Holy cow. So congratulations, Ohtani. It's great to see you doing well. And it's just so exciting to watch you pitch and see you knock the ball around the park the way you do. So congratulations to Ohtani and Team Japan for that great victory. Now, the very last thing I have is to show off the t-shirt of the day. So longtime listeners, you may have been familiar with the cap of the day. I've run out of baseball caps right now. I'm sure to pick up a couple of more. In fact, I saw one that I want, and it is the World Baseball Classic Team Japan cap. It's really cool. And I'm going to have to get one of those in honor of Ohtani. But so here's the t-shirt of the day, which is also in honor of Ohtani. On the front, it is the Angels t-shirt. You'll see that there. On the front, it has Angels. And this is a little different from the traditional Angels uniform, which you think of as being red with black and white. This is a navy blue, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm trying to talk and not block the microphone while I show it. But it's navy blue. It's got the traditional Angels logo with the halo around the Angels A and the traditional lettering. I'm going to have to look up what kind of script this is. It's a very unique lettering with the little bump outs in the middle of the capital letters, the little bump outs on the sides of the A and the N and the G. but it's great classic lettering, and I love the A with the halo around it. Of course, on the back, we have Ohtani and his number 17. And here, the 17 is in the same special text that the word Angels on the front of the shirt is written in. The last name Ohtani, though, is just in kind of more traditional block lettering. So 2 different fonts on the back of the shirt. So navy blue with red lettering with a white outline. Great t-shirt, gift from my daughter, and looking forward to wearing this to opening day, where I'll be seeing Ohtani pitch. He's scheduled to pitch in Oakland for the Angels on opening day. So that's all for today, my friends. Join us next time, because honestly, what can be better than talking baseball? As always, I'm your host, Phil S. Truth Harrison. We'll see you next time on My Week in Baseball.